Hi folks, today I want to show you how to use Sketchup to create your CAD models. We're going to use this tool to create CAD designs specifically for construction and architectural designs, which is what SketchUp is commonly used for. It's a little bit different than the mechanical CAD tools like Onshape that we've used so far, which are more geared towards uh, getting specific details and geometry right. SketchUp is much more geared towards creating an accurate physical visual representation of a design. Like I said, super useful for construction and architecture. So when you create your SketchUp design, uh, you'll see something like this. There'll be a creepy dude standing in the middle. He's there to give you some context for size. Um, just taking a look at the assignment, some of the tools I wanted you guys to play around with here while we're getting used to using this tool. They're listed in that assignment. Just wanted to show you some quick tips and tricks for working with those tools. For example, you got two menus. You got one on the left side of the screen here. This is all your drawing tools. Lets you move things around. It lets you push and pull things to make them three-dimensional. And over on the right side of the screen, there's a bunch of different menu items that are kind of geared towards the properties of the thing we're modeling rather than the actual like specific lines and surfaces and that kind of thing. So if you mouse over each of these menu items, it tells you what it is. Like select is there, lets me click things. Erase here will do just that. It'll erase lines and surfaces. This paint tool lets you fill in colors and change the appearance of stuff. Line tool, if you click that, it opens up a new menu, and there's a couple options here. There's drawing a straight line and there's drawing a freehand line, and it's pretty simple to use. If I want to draw a bunch of lines, it's click, 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 and there I have a bunch of lines. Now orbiting around, changing the view. It's kind of hard to see sometimes because this is a two-dimensional representation of something that is inherently 3D. This little option down here at the bottom will let you change the view. So an orbit, if you click, will let you rotate around. And you can see I got a bunch of random lines there. Not particularly useful, but whatever. Some of the other visualization tools, the little hand is called a pan. If you click, it'll grab the screen and move it around without rotating. Zoom in and zoom out. The easiest way to zoom in and zoom out, obviously, is to like scroll in, scroll out, and that'll let you zoom in and zoom out. That's a line tool. You could do a freehand draw. Wonderful. Oh, that created quite a mess. I'm going to get rid of that. The tool under this is for arcs. So think about like parts of a circle, different ways of drawing those things. The tool under here is a rectangle. So ways of drawing rectangles, circles, polygons, and 3D text. So like the rectangle tool, if I click to make a rectangle, you'll notice that this rectangle is shaded in. And so this rectangle, if I rotate around, you can see it's on that blue-green plane, whereas these random lines I made below are kind of going every which way. They're not on a specific two-dimensional plane. The reason is this lets you, the shading in tells you whether or not you're able to extrude that to make it three-dimensional. So underneath the rectangle tool, there's this thing called a push-pull. And push-pull is like what the extrude was in Onshape. And so if I select the push-pull tool, if I have one of these shaded in surfaces, I can click them, and it'll drag it out and make it three-dimensional. And so what's really nice about SketchUp, what it does really well compared with like tools like Onshape that are more geared towards precise things, you can just click and drag circles and make things however big you want them to be. It makes it really easy to kind of freehand your designs. For example, if I went here and drew like a sketch of something here on this surface, you'll see that's now shaded in. I can use my push-pull tool to push that out and make it 3D. Let me, I don't know, maybe draw a rectangle here. If I selected this, I could pull it out and that would make it three-dimensional. My other option is I could push it in and you'll see I get a hole. So that actually is used to extrude to add stuff to a surface. It also can be used to remove material from a surface. So that's kind of a handy thing that SketchUp does pretty well. It makes it really easy to use. So you can play around with that. It just takes a little bit of getting used to before you understand kind of how it works. Yeah, it's a lovely shape. Now, this is all kind of real general. We haven't done anything precise. If you want to make things precise using measurements, which we're talking about working in construction, that's going to be super important. It's actually pretty easy to do. Anytime you draw something, so let me draw a rectangle. After you finish drawing that thing, you'll see in the bottom right corner, let's do that again, the dimensions pop up. You can actually type in whatever dimensions you want. So this is currently 8 feet and 1/4 inch by 3 feet, 8 3/4 inch. Maybe I want to make this like 12 inches by 12 inches. So I do 12. The double apostrophe means inches, which is the same as 1 foot. The single apostrophe means feet. You hit enter and it'll resize that object automatically. And that'll make sure that object is the correct size for you. So you can play around with that. It works for lines, circles, pretty much anything. The next kind of super important tool to work with is this move tool, because this will let us obviously move things around. And under move, there's a move from point, there's a rotate around from point, and there's a scale tool. And so these are all used to manipulate our three-dimensional objects. So if I click move, I click a point, it moves that point. Now that can kind of start doing some crazy things, and of course I can do rotate, and I can rotate things around. Ooh, that's getting crazy. Let me go over here and create just kind of a simpler thing to play around with. Let's make that 6 feet on the dot. So, like I was just saying, like if I use the move tool and click a point, it's just going to move that point and stretch that point around. Now, when we're talking about construction, we're going to have parts that we're working with. And so the trick to making things a cohesive part, now right now these are all individual lines, faces, and points. If I have my select tool open though, I can right click one of these surfaces, I can select everything connected with that, and you'll see that I'll highlight all the surfaces, lines, and points connected with that object. If I right click that, I can make that into a component or a group. And so a group just collects things so that they move and interact together. A component is what we would use to make parts that are designed to be reused in our overall CAD model. So I'm going to just group those together. If I select the move tool, bam, I can now move that together as one cohesive whole. Now, the other thing about this move tool is pretty cool, and if you look at the bottom, it'll give you some tips for using that. But if I hold down Control and try to move this, it'll actually duplicate that and make a copy of it, which is actually a real easy way of taking something and using that repeatedly. And I can also type in dimensions if I use this move copy tool. So if I move copy that, you see a distance in that bottom right corner's popped up. I can specify exactly how far apart I want these to be. And if I hit X and a number, that'll create a certain number of copies. So I hit X10, and that created 10 copies of this object that are all equally spaced. And so that's kind of like the pattern tools in Onshape, except here with SketchUp, it's designed to work a lot more fluidly and more efficiently. That's kind of the basics. Some other tools here, like there's stuff for measuring things, something for displaying dimensions. Let's see. Yeah, there was like a 3D text tool. which can be useful at times. That'll go ahead and like extrude your sketch, your text. Um, so like with any computer software, it takes time to figure out how things work and get used to stuff. So as you're working with this tool, make sure you are playing around with things. Make sure you are testing stuff. Your friend, as with anything else, is the wonderful Control Z, which will undo any action that you don't want did. So be aware of that. There are also a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts that make working with this software super efficient. So you see I'm not going over here and actually clicking stuff very much. It's because I know what the keyboard shortcuts are. For example, if I want to draw a line, if I hit L on my keyboard, that defaults to the line tool. If I hit R, it defaults to the rectangle tool. If I hit M, that's the move tool. That'll let me move things around. And so as you use the software, try to use those keyboard shortcuts, and it'll make this super efficient to use. Good ones to know: O is orbit. That'll let you rotate. H is a hand tool. It'll let you click and drag the screen. Q is my rotate tool, which will let you click on something and rotate it around. Spacebar, probably the most common one you want to use. That'll get you out of any of the other tools and bring you back to the select so that you can click on stuff. So as we get into working with more complicated designs, I'll try to tell you what keyboard shortcuts I'm using in those designs, and it'll again make things go a whole lot faster. That should be enough to get you all started. And we will explore some of the tools in this menu as we start actually building our actual designs. If you want to save your design, you go up here, click Save, enter a name for your model. So I'm going to call it Sketchup Practice. If you've logged in with your school Google account, it'll take you to your Google Drive and let you save that in your Google Drive. So all of your designs will be saved in the cloud, and you don't have to worry about like backups and people erasing your work and all that kind of mess. If you're working from a public computer, I would highly recommend you to go into your Drive, go to New, and create your own folder to put stuff in that. Put your SketchUp design. So, for example, I created a engineering design folder where I'm sticking some of my CAD models. So I'm just going to save this practice drawing there. Play around with it, see what you can create, and we will start working on more complicated designs soon enough.